the way the military programs you. They're not trying to program you to be an emotional, healthy employee. They're trying to turn you into a killing machine, for lack of a better word. And killing machines are more efficient when they don't have, emotions. So they're like, there is no real emotion here. It's basically like you're taught to keep smushing down that emotion and ignoring it because someone could lose their life because you're distracted by your emotions. What happens is the big issue is, okay, that's how you're going to function while you're in, but there's nothing to deprogram that when you get out.
Hello and welcome to Real Men Feel. I'm your host, Andy Grant. Today my guest is Louis Stockley Jr., an Army veteran, father, coach, and founder of Before 22, a movement built for the warriors who are losing the war after the war. Louis spent 17 years in military and federal service, did everything he was supposed to do, and still found himself drowning in silence, emotional shutdown, and the pressure to keep performing while falling apart inside. Instead of pretending everything was fine, he turned his breakdown into a mission. Today, we're talking about what it really means to be a man in the world that trains us to suffer quietly, what happens when the uniform comes off and the pain shows up, and how men can reclaim their voice, their identity, and their life before silence wins. Let's do it. Hello, Louis, and welcome to Real Men Feel. I know you entered the military at a pretty young age. How old were you when you went into the Army?
I was 17, fresh out of high school.
And how long did you serve?
I served for about 6.5 years.
How did your experience in the military shape your definition of masculinity?
For me, going into the military was different. I had kind of like male role models. Like I had an uncle. I had a couple of uncles that would spend time with me on and off, things like that. But as far as a steady father figure in my life, I didn't have that. But I did have tons of influences from the military itself because all those people served. My mom served, stepdad who was in and out served, all those different people served in the military. And so I looked at that as the way to develop myself to the next step. So when I joined the military, I was still figuring out what masculinity actually meant. I had to grow up really fast because my stepdad left unexpectedly. My mother had to pick up 2 jobs to cover for that loss of income and keep things moving. I picked up a job and stopped doing sports and instantly started giving all my paychecks to the household, helping to raise my sister who was 7 years younger than me. And so I came into it thinking that was the idea of masculine is do everything you can and don't complain. So naturally, I ran into lots of trouble in the beginning of my military career.
Was the entire career kind of problematic? Were you clashing with things, or what were the issues?
So in the beginning, it was more like just learning how to be an adult, all the typical things that, a father figure would teach you, kind of like be a man of your word. If you say you're going to be here at this time, or if you have the responsibility to be there, make sure you're there, plan, do all of those different things. I gained a lot of the military discipline in basic training, which was 13 weeks. And I knew how to be a soldier. But as far as an adult man, I still had no idea. And my first real lesson in that was when I made a huge mistake. I got stationed in Germany, and it always starts with a girl. So there was a girl that I had met back in training, and I said, I'm going to go visit her. I was in the city of Mannheim in Germany, and she lived in a city called Stuttgart. And to get to Stuttgart is a very, very long train ride. So I said, okay, I'll come hang out with you over the weekend and see where you're stationed and, we'll have fun. And so I leave on Friday. I go there, no plan. I barely had any money in my bank account, just living life on the edge. And I had no plan on how I was going to get back. So on Sunday, we had an amazing weekend. On Sunday, she drops me off at the train station. I'm like, okay, I'll be good here. First problem pops up. It's dark. The train station isn't active. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? So I go inside the train station. nothing's running, I managed to look at the schedule and realize that the train stopped running at like 4 p.m. on Sundays there. So they shut down. I'm due to be back in formation in Mannheim at 6 a.m. on Monday, but I have no way to get back. And I have no power on the cell phone. We had Nokia phones back then. So that was like, those phones would die really fast. Then I have the no money issue. So I couldn't use a pay phone to call or anything like that. Not that I'd be able to dial because I'm still fresh in Germany and have no clue how to do any of that. So I sleep on a park bench right there in the train station, listening to all the weird haunted sounds, smelling the piss on the bench. With probably constant, lots of messed up people who were there and things like that. I wake up to a train pulling into the station at 6 a.m. in the morning, the time I'm supposed to be basically at work. I wake up, I hop on the train. A couple hours later, I get back there. My NCO or supervisor, he gave me like he chewed me out from left to right, just basically chewed me out, gave me every punishment in the book, which in the army, you're doing push-ups, you're doing sit-ups, you're doing essays about how important it is to be on time. They're putting it on record, giving you what's called a counseling statement. And I just couldn't figure out in my 17, 18-year-old brain, I'm like, why is he so angry? What's his problem? Because I'm like, okay, I'm getting consequences and all that stuff, but what's his real problem? And I still talk to him to this day, and he was just really worried for my safety, like a father figure would be. And he was really drilling into me the importance of some of these masculine principles. Like, if you say you're going to be at formation on Monday, you need to make sure you know how you're going to be there, know the plan. And if things go wrong, you need to be able to get in contact with me because my responsibility is to make sure you're safe, not just out of a work role, but because you are the person that I'm responsible for. You are kind of like my child in the situation because I'm way further along in this career than you are. And so he chewed me out. And back then I was really, really angry about it, obviously. But, as time went on and I grew, I realized that was like one of my first real masculine lessons from the military.
Mm. So the military overall was it more like positive lessons, at least in hindsight?
It was mistakes, but I guess one of my gifts is just learning from the mistakes. I made lots of different mistakes, even in basic training. We ran every single day, we ran every day for 13 weeks, part of the training. You get up and you do your PT, you do push-ups, sit-ups in the organization, and you go for maybe a 1 mile to a 3 mile, 4 mile run. On one of these runs, we're going up this thing I call the Devil's Hill because it tricks you. You think you're just going up this one hill, and if you fight and get up that hill, you're good. But you get up there and you realize there's another hill, and that one goes way up there. And so it defeats people, right? You get up to the first hill and you stop. But I was like, I'm not going to stop him to keep going. And due to me just not being conditioned enough, I'm hitting that second hill, trying to drive up the hill, and I feel a pop over here in my hip flexor. And then massive pain ensues. And it was all I could do was to jog and kind of limp. And so we're all running together in this formation, and instead of being in the middle of the formation where I was, I had to go to the back of it, which is where the people who are almost about to quit, they go to the back of the formation and they start just fading back as everybody just keeps going. We all know the route, so nobody gets left behind, but it's kind of, a shameful thing. So I basically grinded through that tear. It was a partial tear, I would say. If it was a full one, I probably wouldn't have been able to even limp. That happened at week 2. I went through the other 11 weeks with that injury, just at night, just agonizing with it, trying to stretch it because, it'll get tight and it'll swell up. It'll do all sorts of stuff. That was the most pain I'd ever felt ever. And I just felt this, I learned one negative thing from it. One negative lesson was to keep pushing through the pain no matter what happens. Whereas sometimes it might be time to go get that looked at, might be time to go get that fixed. But then the other lesson I learned is what does commitment really look like, And it's to say, and my commitment was I can't go back home. Things were not good with my mother. There was no success there. The people that I grew up with weren't into good things back in my hometown. I knew if I went back there, I'm going to get sucked into all that again.
Mm.
So I said, okay, I got to commit to this. It's either do or die. I'm going to do this now or I'm not. And so I kept going. The injury hardened over and I just kept moving forward, just kind of learning lessons from things that went wrong like that.
So I've heard you say that when you left the service, it was like being dropped off in the deep end. What was that
Mhm.
deep end for you?
The deep end for me is like this from the perspective of going into the military at 17. I never truly had the adult experience outside of the military. Also, I go through and I become an adult going through the military, which is different because they kind of provide everything for you, right? They give you the structure, they feed you, they pay you, they give you health benefits and all that stuff. All you have to do is fill out forms and things, and all those things are taken care of for you, even a place to live for the most part. I basically, in my last year and a half, I was deployed. That was my first ever deployment in the military. So me and my wife, who I had met in Germany, we get stationed at Fort Campbell. I go through 6 or 7 months of a training exercise with my unit, and then we deploy over to Afghanistan. We spend all that time there, and when I come back, it's already time for me to get out. And so I get out or start this terminal leave. You just cash in all your leave and you're still getting paid until the leave runs out, basically. So I take my terminal leave and I get out, and all they basically did was hand me a checklist. They didn't really check on my mental state, physical state, or anything. They said, here's all the gear that you have that we've issued you. This is what we need back. These are the different places you need to go talk to this financial person, this person, that person. And they're all like, you have any questions? And I'm like, I don't even know what I don't know to ask the questions that need to happen. And they're like, okay, great. They just check you off on the list. And you just in your goal, your mission for the last few weeks you're in is just to get through that checklist. And then you get out. And I knew what my plan was. I wanted to join the government, and be in IT doing that, which is what I did in the military as well. But beyond that, I had no idea what I was in for. I had no clue even how to sign up for health insurance, for example. And I had no real experience going and applying for jobs, like interviewing, doing all of those things. So it was really like I had to learn all that stuff. And I had massive amounts of pressure to learn it because my son was on the way. I got out in June. He was set to be born in December. So he ended up being born December 27th, which is, a couple days after Christmas. But I felt this pressure to just figure it all out. So I would make lots of mistakes and people would take advantage of that too. Like we needed health insurance. My wife needed to go to OB appointments, obviously, and do an ultrasound and do those things. And I called like a 1-800 number, told the person on the line my situation. And he was basically like, yeah, I'm a veteran, I can relate to what's going on here. I'll help you. Right. And I'm like, okay. He said he's a veteran. Immediately to me, no world experience. I'm like, I'm just going to trust this guy that he's saying everything he's going to do. And so he's like, okay, so for this insurance plan, you pay us around 5 grand and I'll set the plan up for you. The cards will come in the mail. You take her to her first appointment. You're good. So without even thinking about it, we pay the 5 grand. The cards come in the mail. We go to the appointment. We have the ultrasound. We have this amazing memory, seeing my son on the screen. They print out the pictures and all that. Heartwarming moment. And then I hand them the cards again. They're like, let me take another look at that. And the lady is kind of perplexed by it. And we're like, okay, what's going on? She goes, takes the card to the back. The lady in the back calls us back there and asks us to sit down. And she said, this card doesn't cover anything. So whoever gave you this insurance screwed you over big time because from right now until the birth of your son, it's going to cost you around $30,000. Me, no world experience, no job yet. Savings are starting to run out, all that stuff. And I'm faced with that $30,000 bill and just struggling trying to figure it out. And I just had to keep running into situations like that. Like we figured that out eventually, obviously, because my son's here and we're not still paying a bunch of money to something. But I finally keep grinding because while I was deployed, I've been working on my bachelor's degree because I knew if I want to get in the government, gotta have that. I had like 2 months left before I finished it, and I was already out of the military, still trying to get in the government. Something told me just keep applying anyway, keep trying. Me with no experience how it's supposed to work, I kept applying, and I ended up getting a job offer to go to DC. We're in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. So we have a house that we bought there. We had to buy the house because of how big my family was with the wife, kids, and we had dogs that we brought with us. Nobody would let us rent an apartment anywhere or rent a house because the dogs were pit bulls. We had 2 pit bulls, or they thought they were like dangerous breeds, like a German Shepherd or whatnot. And we're big animal people, so we're like, no, we're not going to abandon our dogs just so we can rent a house. So I'm like, I've never bought a house. I'll figure out how to buy a house. And in 2 weeks, I bought a house. I said, we need somebody to help us manage this property or put somebody in to rent it so we can move out there because we're going to be paying 2 mortgages until we can do that. So I go to the property management person and I'm like, I need some help with the house, da, da, da. And he's like, I'm a retired sergeant major from the Army, trust me, I'm a veteran as well. So again, I'm like, oh, he says he's a veteran. He was a high ranking guy. He must be a leader, really trustworthy. I'm like, okay, cool. We signed on the dotted line. He says, I'll put my best employee on this, my son. So I'm like, okay, that sounds legit. He's going to have his son, work on this. And so we leave, and long story short, they didn't do background checks on the people they brought in. They put in a convict wanted in like 3 different states. Apparently, him and a buddy pulled up to a Walmart, held up an old lady at gunpoint, took her car and all sorts of stuff from her, and just ran and just left. And so they had warrants out for this guy and everything. And again, this was me with 0 experience about how to deal with stuff like this in life, trying to just make it, trying to protect my family, feed my family. All of that stuff just, I felt like I got dropped off the deep end. We figured it out because I ended up working for the Department of Justice, and I quickly gathered up connections, and the local PD didn't care. They were like, warrant's not in this state, so good luck. But I didn't care that these people were in the house. So we had to fire the property management people, and I got the creative idea to call a local FBI office down there in Tennessee, told them that I'm with the DOJ, I need a little help here, a little law enforcement help, from one thread to another. And I said, could you guys do something? So they called the local PD, and the local PD listened to them and swung by the house, and it spooked them so bad that they left. They abandoned the house. And it was the guy who had the warrant for him. It was his girlfriend and 3 kids that were in the house. And we had tried to get them out before because they weren't paying rent and the property manager wasn't doing anything about it. So, we got them out of the house, but they left a dead dog in the backyard. And so all these different experiences are happening in my mind. I'm attributing this to, man, I can't trust veterans anymore. I'm getting to that point where I'm ashamed to be a veteran. If this is how we act when we're out, I can't trust them, can't do any of that stuff. And so that's when I really started to feel like isolated. I didn't even want to put on a job application that I was a veteran anymore or talk to other vets. I was like, I'm going to just try to be a full-on civilian and go through my life that way.
I know you said you used the phrase, I'm good during all this time. So what did I'm good mean for you?
What it meant for me is that I would just keep moving, and anything I was feeling in my mind, I would just keep distracting myself from. And what was always prevalent, even since high school, childhood, whatever, was video games. So I'm playing video games and fighting for my life basically at the same time, trying to keep food on the table, fix all these different problems and stuff, and just pour my emotion into whatever distraction I had, which was that, just video games. Essentially, if anybody ever asked what was going on with me, that would be the answer. I'm all right. I'm good. And nobody would really argue with that, obviously, because I kept myself kind of isolated, and on paper, it looks good, right? I'm working for the federal government. I got to the point where I was the youngest executive in that agency, making probably about 130K a year, and just really killing it in my 20s, getting awards and accolades and stuff like that. So in my mind, I'm looking at all that stuff, all those lists of achievements, and I'm like, I have to be good, right? I got all this stuff going for me. It just came crashing down for me because I had this list of goals to hit. And one of them was that dollar amount, hit that 130K. And I'm sitting in my office there in DC. And I'm thinking, and I find this Word doc that had the list of goals checked off and stuff. And I see the 130K. And then I look at my paycheck and I'm like, whoa, I hit that. There wasn't a single goal after that. And so my mind, this quiet question popped up that happens for a lot of veterans after they think they achieve they achieve what they think they wanted. What's next? And when I didn't have an answer for that question, man, I was floored. That's when my mental health hit the ground. It just tanked. And so in order to cope with it, I said, oh, I play video games. They feel good. Let's play more video games. So my life became, even with a wife, young kids and stuff like that, it became work and video games. That's all I had space for, is to try to bury everything I was feeling in video games. And that went on for years, thousands of dollars into these games and all sorts of stuff.
So what finally ended that?
What ended it for me is, deep down, we know as men when we're doing something wrong, and what we run for is we run from when we're doing the wrong thing is accountability, like obviously, right? As the one thing that will make you stop in your tracks. My wife was obviously going to be my accountability partner, and she is Russian and Serbian, so she will never hold back, right? She will make sure. But I didn't give her the opportunity because I hid how much I was truly spending on these games. All she saw is I was spending lots of time on it. The bill came in the mail one month, and it was thousands of dollars spent in a month on just games. Like there was nothing palpable there, nothing like not investments or anything like that. It was just spending on games because they just weren't interesting enough to keep this distraction going. I had to keep getting more and more and more. And she saw that and she was shocked. She was like, we could pay more bills with this. We could put more food. We could do all these different things. And you spent all this on games. And she put her foot down and she said, you got to go. And so I did. I packed up a duffel bag. I went to a hotel typically most guys, they might be stubborn. It'll take them a few weeks to figure it out. It took me one night. I was like, do I really want to? Because I have this flashback of all these times that I'm really, it's not like I didn't try to stop playing the games. It's kind of that addiction pattern of I would play for a couple of weeks, feel really guilty, try to cut it all cold turkey, last for a few days, and then get right back to it again. Like, oh, problem must be gone. Let's go back to it, and fall right back into the same vicious pattern over and over and over again. So I'm having memories and flashbacks of all those times where I'm playing games. There was even a time where my wife was pregnant in Germany and she's sitting next to me, probably just wanting attention and all that and not saying anything. And I'm just playing on my computer for hours until she decided to just go to bed, and all these memories are coming back to me and I'm feeling all this guilt and all this weight. And then it's kind of like God was like, all right, now we're going to show you two possibilities. Kind of like that Christmas story, where here's this possible future and here's this one. And here's the future where you're sitting in a basement somewhere renting a room and all you do is play video games all day. Your kids hate you. Your wife divorces you, that kind of lonely life where you're not fulfilled at all. And then here's the other life where you're actually achieving things that make you feel good. You feel peaceful. You're okay with your life, and the games actually don't exist. You don't feel the draw to them. And I chose the other one. I chose the latter because I'm here talking to you. I probably wouldn't have gone through their extensive self-improvement journey that I've been through for the last 10 years if I hadn't made that one single choice. So I call my wife. I say, I don't know what this is going to look like, but I think I need to make a major change. I'm done, you know? So I said, I don't know what to do next, but first thing I'm going to do is come home and sell every game, delete every game, do whatever I can to get all that stuff gone. And I did. I went home. I grabbed all this stuff, threw it in a trash bag, went to GameStop, said, what can you buy from all this stuff? They bought what they could from it, you know, and the rest I just threw away. I left that GameStop and threw the rest in the trash can. And I still had the challenges because I'm an IT guy. So I have a computer all the time with me. I have a phone all the time with me, and there's always games there. So the next step was me and my wife decided was I need to get with a therapist. I find some kind of therapist to help me go through all this. And she did. She essentially kept working with me every single week, just working with me to continue to stay off of them because I quit cold turkey, just straight up. And she had suggested go through like a 12-step program or something like that. But I'm still in my head, like, I'm a veteran. I got to do this alone. So I didn't do that. And so I worked out okay. I kept going. I never went back. So it's been many, many years since I've ever touched a game. I learned some valuable lessons about being a man. One of them in that beginning of working with this therapist was vulnerability. And that's something that's carried me through all the way to now, you know, just to be vulnerable about what you're going through. So the first place I got a master class in doing that was sitting down with my kids, you know, and my wife together and just telling them, your dad is an addict. I know you guys love to play video games, but when I touch a controller and when I play a video game, it's going to go to a whole nother level. So I'm feeling all this shame and embarrassment as I reveal all that to them. And I'm thinking like the kids are going to think, you know, I failed them as a father and they're going to hate me and all this stuff. And they were more like, how can we help you with that? You know, what can we do instead? And that kind of almost brought me to tears. And I'm like, wow, okay, that's true love and support right there. I never experienced that. And so I was like, sure, you guys can play games. I'll be happy to sit around you while you play them, but I can never join in with you anymore. I can't do that. I can't take part because if I do, I won't be the father you know and remember anymore. I'll go back to being that guy. And so we did that. I did the vulnerability thing. And then I went even deeper. I'm like, man, I need to do something because all I'm doing is working. And then I come home and I'm just there with my thoughts, there with all the emotions I've been burying from being deployed and all that stuff. I need to do something. So my mind went back to when did I feel the best? When did I feel the best? And it was when I was deployed with my brothers. We would get up every morning. We would do P90X workouts. So we would do those old P90X workouts in the morning there on base. We would go work out in the gym and hang out stuff. And I'm like, that feels like it would be good thinking about doing those. So I go download a bootleg copy of the P90X workout. And I start getting up at 3 every morning before work. And I just start doing those workouts. And I realized I felt really good. It felt like I was back with them again, even though I was by myself. And so I realized that's what I was searching for was just more of that. So then I start listening to motivational content while I'm working out. And I start taking the training even further. And I go online and I find out there's calisthenics, you know, where you can do all this crazy stuff with your body, almost like you're a gymnast, but not. But, you know, you can be more expressive with how you work out. So I start training calisthenics and P90X and all this stuff gets too easy. I just start building on these things, discovering that there's really more to me than what I thought and getting healthier. Now, the key piece that really taught me everything that carries me to this day was when I had the opportunity to help my first person. Me and my wife had a friend from Germany who was a military guy as well, military policeman. And his situation was even crazier than mine. I only deployed once. In 10 years, he deployed every other year. Every other year as a military policeman is insane because your job is to protect the base. So you could be dealing with car bombs, people trying to bum rush the entrance, all sorts of hectic stuff that you're dealing with all the time. You know, you're not going to sleep well, everything. And so he comes out obviously with massive problems. He comes out around that time frame, goes to New York. His family's not supportive. His father passes away as well. We would have been his only support person that could probably understand what he's going through. Passes away. And me and my wife were like, we just felt like we had to do something. So she's always the one with the spontaneous idea. She's like, well, Thanksgiving is 2 weeks from now. Invite him over. So like, invite him over, like stay with us over the holidays and stuff. He's like, yep. I'm like, all right, why not? Screw it, we'll do that. And so he did. He came, stayed with us over the holidays, slept on the couch. He had sleep apnea, so the kids got a kick out of his snoring every night. It's just like a freight train in the living room. And the kids kind of brought him out of his shell, when a kid comes and grabs you and says, let's go play with trains, let's do all this stuff. You can't stay Mr. Serious forever. So, they pulled him out of his shell. He was 300 pounds when he came. So he was overweight, obviously depressed, PTSD, the whole 9 yards. I'm still working on myself at the same time because I'm like, I have no clue how to get back to where I need to be. So I'm just going to stick with my routine of going down in my basement, grinding, working out, listening to motivational content, reading, and things like that. And I get up, sneak past him every morning before I go to work and start doing that. And he kind of wakes up, one eye, looks at what I'm doing for a week. And then the next week he comes down and says, what are you doing down here, man? I'm always hearing the music going and all that stuff. And I'm like, I'm just working out, I'm just grinding, working on me, trying to get back to where I need to be. And he's like, can I join you? And so I was like, kind of uncomfortable with it because that had been my little sanctuary for so long where I feel like I'm growing and getting better. And I'm like, should I really have somebody else join in with this? But I'm like, sure, man, go ahead, let's do it. And so he comes down, he's struggling through, the workouts with me and stuff. And we had some amazing memories, and I just would keep pouring into him. It just came from somewhere. I'm like, I don't know where this is coming from, but let me say it to him and motivate him and help him. And so you can imagine a lot of the crazy stuff we did. Like he was 300 pounds, and I had this little dinky standalone pull-up bar. And so he does his first pull-up on that, and the bar is just bending and crying for life and everything. And he that's the first pull-up he ever got in like a long time, like he used to be a bodybuilder. So he knew all the stuff, but he hadn't felt it before. And he said that felt amazing. And so he's getting more in shape as we keep going because he stayed through January as well. And we're up at 4 a.m. one morning in front of my street with the 2-lane road that's usually empty, doing wind sprints from mailbox to mailbox, just yelling and amping each other up like soldiers would usually do, just having a great time, waking up the neighbors and stuff. By the time we were done, it healed a piece of me. And he got to a place where he was really good too. And he said, so I instinctively or intuitively, which is how I usually coach people when I was coaching, is ask them like, what's the goal you have for yourself? What do you want to do next? What is that? And he said, I really want to serve again. I want to be a policeman up there in New York. So I'm like, go for it, man. Just apply, see what happens. So when he left at the end of January, he went and applied to be in the police academy. He was in shape. He was down from 300 to 200 pounds and, fit and everything because he was eating the way I was eating. He was working out the way I was working out. And they told him no. They said, you got PTSD on your record. We just don't trust it, psychological wise. So they told him no. But because of all the things we've been doing, he was resilient. And he said, okay, maybe that dream isn't it for me. And he became head of security at a psych facility and just started doing that, helping people stay safe in that facility and kept doing that. And he still works different types of security positions and stuff to this day. I still talk to him. He's actually going to come this Christmas possibly as well. So he's even a single father with a daughter now. And, I like to think that that's the first person I truly helped and figured myself out in the same process too. Just two guys, two men, just grinding it out, figuring our shit out.
So is that really when you discovered the power of brotherhood and the power and the good feelings that you being of service, being a coach brought to you.
hmm
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like it woke it back up because that's what the military builds you on, is brotherhood and sisterhood. Because when you're deployed, if you don't have that kind of connection where you would give your life for the other person, it's very likely that the mission isn't going to be successful, which is what the military is thinking. Like, so they're like, how can we get these people to bond as strong as possible, as quickly as possible? We're going to put them in the same uniform, do what's called fear bonding. You're all going to do crazy training and experiences together and go through all these things together so that we can build this tight, cohesive team. I just didn't know that's what was happening. And then it just kind of woke up when I'm working with him, like, oh, this feels really good, And that's when I was like, okay, that's part of the puzzle that was missing.
Cool. I want to go back to when your wife kicks you out, and
Yep.
because I think it's miraculous that this was a positive turning point for you instead of a death spiral, which is what it is for so many other men. So, what do you think it was that made you make the best out of a really poor situation?
I don't know. I just have this weird way of thinking. My family kind of calls it mind over matter. And I was thinking, like, what do I want? You know, because I've been there before, the other side where I'm alone, playing video games, living this life I hate, because that's what my life was like in high school. I didn't take part in any of the activities in high school except prom. When I quit sports, all I would do was work and go to school. And so I knew what that felt like already. And it was kind of like, I don't want to go back to that anymore. And so in my mind, it became a very simple choice. Yeah, this is going to be painful and hard, but you've dealt with painful and hard before. So might as well go right back to it and see if it makes your life better, because the other option isn't going to be worth it at all. The way I equate it to is this one question is, it's something I taught other people that I coach too. And it's, am I going to quit now? Because when you ask yourself a question, like, even if you don't mean to get an answer, your mind is going to immediately answer for you. It just slips right through the veil, can't get filtered out. And so you ask yourself that question, am I going to quit now? The answer is going to be no. And so once the answer becomes no, your only option at that point is to begin to think of solutions. And you start thinking of options and solutions instead of quitting. And you're moving forward then.
Cool. Yeah, our brain really exists to answer questions. So it is all about, thank God you were asking more uplifting questions. If I was in that situation, I would have been asking like, why does everything suck so much? What did I screw up to get here? And that would be part of that spiral down. So I'm glad you didn't
Yep.
go there. And hearing your story, it really feels like love is what you got to go.
Mm-hmm.
The love for your children, the love for your wife, the love you knew existed for
Yeah,
you from
very
them.
true.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Very true.
So,
That was it too, yeah. Because I think if it was just me by myself facing the same challenges, I probably would have ended up going all the way to being homeless. Like, I think I just didn't want to let them down as well.
why are so many vets terrified to talk about what's really going on for them?
There's a lot of different reasons. Some of them could be like me. We had lots of bad experiences and we're afraid to open up because we've been shown a few times or time and time again that when we open up even just a little bit or try to, let ourselves open to trust something or someone, we get let down. And so as a soldier that we are, we know serve and we're dependent on and all those things. So we're gonna smush it all down and just keep driving forward, not realizing there's an expiration date. So there's that. Then there's the way the military programs you. They're not trying to program you to be an emotional, healthy employee. They're trying to turn you into a killing machine, for lack of a better word. And killing machines are more efficient when they don't have, emotions. So they're like, there is no real emotion here. It's just focusing on the mission. So it's basically like you're taught to keep smushing down that emotion and ignoring it because someone could lose their life because you're distracted by your emotions and everything like that. What happens is the big issue is, okay, that's how you're going to function while you're in. but there's nothing to deprogram that when you get out. So guys will continue that way until they can't anymore, until maybe somebody's able to reach them and get them to see, okay, we got to start making changes.
Yeah, there's no opposite of boot camp, no healthy exit camp that would really set you
Mm-hmm.
up. So tell
Yeah.
me about before 22.
So the 422 is based on that premise where there just isn't, there's just a huge gap there where guys are getting out of the military. They're getting out by surprise. They're getting out because they think they want to or they plan to. And once they're actually out and the structure and camaraderie and everything of the military is gone, they feel like they're dropped by the wayside. That void shows up, that darkness in your chest shows up like you, man, I missed that. I wish I was back there because now this doesn't feel very safe, secure anymore. And I don't know what's missing. And so before 22 exists to put words to those emotions and those feelings that are coming up, but not just leave you with that, not like hand you that and say, okay, that's how you're feeling. It's kind of like leading you to, okay, so if something's missing, what's missing? And so we try to teach them about purpose, try to teach them about finding a brotherhood because we have the group before 22 that we try to bring people in there. But we're like, if you don't go there, find some place like that, try different things there. And before 22 is essentially a shot out in the darkness that speaks so deeply to what you're feeling that if you've been struggling, we call them silent warriors. If you've been a silent warrior struggling for a long time, just keeping quiet about it, just something about our message makes you wake up and decide, okay, I'm going to say something or I'm going to ask for help. And so many times we'll see in the comment section, people are just saying, like, we had a guy come in there a month or so ago saying, I was thinking about taking my own life already, but I don't want to leave my family behind and I'm not sure what to do to get help. And so, like, that's just one example, but that guy, he served in the military, got out, became a firefighter. So that's even more stuff that he's dealing with. And he was an active firefighter. And there they have this thing where they're linked to your health insurance. So if you try to use your insurance to go get some type of psychiatric or psychological care, it will flag you and they could review you to remove you from your career just because you tried to go get help for your mental health.
Wow.
And so he's telling us that, like, I need help. I don't want to lose my family, but if I try to go get this help, I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to lose my livelihood and I won't be able to feed and support my family. So it's like a huge catch 22. We were like, holy crap, I always find help. We did. We made so many calls and we found places where it's like, if you pay cash, we don't need to go for your insurance at all or anything. We'll have a bed available. You take some leave, you come stay with us, you get yourself together, you go back to your life. Found a place with a bed open for him and he got the help he needed. But those are the gaps that are out there for these soldiers that come out of the military. They feel like they're dropped on the wayside and they'll just sit with that. And me, luckily, I naturally progressed to going through all that stuff. I did have moments where I thought of taking my own life as well, but I had people that would do things like that. One guy convinced me to go to this 3-week program. That program ultimately saved my life because first person I sat down with when they flew me out there to stay at this program that I thought was going to be all about getting a fitness cert, but it was really about, psychological health and things like that, along with the fitness stuff. I sit down in front of this psychologist. His name was Johnny, and he's just got this upbeat energy, and he's just talking to me like I've never been talked to before, just asking me about stuff. Because me going there put my marriage on the rocks. My wife was like, you're leaving us to go do this. And I don't understand what's going on. I couldn't tell her I'm thinking about not being around anymore. So I need to do something. So I just had to make the choice to go get that help and put it back together when I came home. So I'm feeling all that and he can see it. And he's speaking to me about all that. He's like, don't worry about it, man. We'll figure it out as we go, blah, blah, blah. But then what stuck with me was at the end. He was like, all right, man, you're going to do great here. I'm here every single day. We're always going to be talking. I love you, brother. That's what he said. He looked me straight in the eyes and he was like, I love you, brother. And that was the first grown man ever to say that to me. Isn't that crazy? The first grown man in my entire life to say, like, I love you. And I didn't even know what to do with that one. I was like, okay, yeah. And I just walked away back to the table. But that
Thank
just
you.
kind of,
Yeah. Mm.
but that, yeah, it stuck with me, man. And I was like, why is that feel so awkward to me? Why does that's something that was like amazing, and that just shook my entire foundation. And I want to create experiences like that with Before 22. And I want to do it at the level of social media because there are veterans always in the middle of the night scrolling, looking for something. And if I can hit them with the right video at the right time, then that's another life saved right there. Before they even have to go sit down in front of a therapist, before they're even figuring out what to do, and they're maybe thinking they don't want to be around anymore, I can get a message to them. And then if they usually are compelled to reach out if they're at that level of pain. And then I have the opportunity to route them with the different resources that we're building and linking up and setting up and things like that. And we're also, and the thing that's controversial about Before 22 as well is we're not a nonprofit. Every resource I get and create is going to go towards helping veterans and allowing me to keep helping them. But I'm running it as a business because I had the benefit of seeing inside a lot of these veteran nonprofits, and the well is like dry, like I tried to get guys help and stuff like that. And they'd always be like, we don't have space available. We don't have resources. We don't have money. And I'm like, if we had a viable product that was like a win-win, did this for that person that paid and gave you the resources to help, that would be it. We could make as much resources as we need and never have to hear no when a guy comes and asks for help. So I said, Before 22 will be about making apparel and spreading these messages. And now the apparel will be an extension of the messages being spread. Because when you wear the shirt Before 22, it says the mission is to survive, or whatever other stuff I come up with, people will ask, especially veterans, because it kind of speaks to them, on a deep level. They'll be like, what's that about? And you can be like, go check out this video. Or, this is what it is. And then that's another person that maybe needed some help that will be able to get it, be able to join the group, find a brotherhood, find something.
It amazes and saddens me still that, we're encouraging men to be vulnerable, to tell them it's okay to ask for help and get help and you're worthy of support.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's still aspects of society that will punish them. You put
Yep.
your job at risk, you put your family at risk, you put your livelihood at risk. It's fucking horrible. So
Yep.
what is the meaning? What does Before 22 mean?
The statistic used to be that 22 veterans a day were taking their own lives. It's more like 60 now. The VA just doesn't keep track of it because when a veteran takes their own life, the death certificate isn't typically reported to the VA. They're not clamoring to get that statistic or information either, because that means that they're failing at their task of protecting and helping veterans. So, but 22 a day is the coined term that is well known across the veteran communities and law enforcement and first responder across the, social media. So we said, we want to catch you before you become one of the 22. So we came with Before 22.
So if there's a guy out there who's obviously shutting down and in trouble to the people around him, but he's staying silent, what's some advice for his friends, for his family? What can they do to help him?
The advice is to have courage, because I've actually helped a few families that way as well, where sometimes you'll get the guy that's quiet and reserved and depressed and he'll just be like, I'm all right, and just melt away. But then you'll get the other kind that gets defensive or loud and tries to kind of scare you away. And it's like, as a family member, you don't have to sit there and take the face value answer just because it's awkward or it's going to be a tough conversation and you can kind of feel that in your soul. You can be like, no, what's really going on? I know something's up, so let me know what's going on. And it takes one family member, usually like one of the last one was a black sheep, his sister, do like, what do I need to do? And it was kind of like, he's gonna yell, he's gonna throw a tantrum. He's definitely not gonna hurt you. He loves you, but he's trying to scare you away because, he's got all this trauma and stuff going on. But what you're gonna do is keep bringing it up. If he throws a tantrum, sure, go ahead, go away. But when he comes trying to talk to you about something else, you just bring it up again and again until he was like, all right, fine, I'll go talk to somebody. And mission accomplished. Then you get him to the next step where he'll at least speak to someone. Because what's scary, that's the other thing I teach families is if he's showing emotion, whether it's sadness or fear, frustration, annoyance, anger, any of those, that's actually a good thing. They're like, that's good. And I'm like, yeah, it's good because the worst place that they can be is an absence of emotion, apathy. When you're apathetic, when different thoughts come into your head, they become truth. They become fact. So the thought of maybe it'd be better if I'm not around anymore. When you're in a place of apathy, that's when that decision becomes an action. More likely the barrier between just a thought and taking an action, that barrier is just dropped. And so if they're at that place where a lot of the things just don't bring them joy anymore, or they don't want to play video games, they don't want to go out anymore, and they just seem like an emotional robot, that's the place where you want to try to figure out how to get them to feel something again.
Louis, what's the best way for people to connect with you, follow you?
Best way is on any of the platforms. You can find me as Vet Coach Louis, or you can find the organization as Before 22. Both sides of the same coin. I speak personally from my experiences on Vet Coach Louis, and I teach everything I learned as a coach, coaching entrepreneurs and business owners and professionals and stuff. I just put it out for free on there, just trying to help as many as I can. And then on Before 22, those are voiceover AI videos completely written and designed by me with the imagery and everything like that, that will speak to somebody who's struggling or somebody that needs a new perspective in the effort to help them see themselves in the video and say, okay, let me write something, let me comment. So if you want to connect with me, that's great. But if you do find someone that's struggling, just tell them to search Before 22 and take a look at a video at the top, and they'll probably connect with that message quickly and realize maybe this is something I should look deeper into.
And finally, Louis, what do you wish more men knew?
I wish more men knew to don't beat yourself up, because nobody has it figured out 100%. And so the best thing that you can do as a man is to try to get around those you feel are further ahead than you are and give yourself grace for the mistakes that you make. And not to say that you don't feel anything for making the mistake and you're not going to try to correct it, but it's a lot easier process if you don't beat yourself up over it, because you have to look at your life, the life of those that came before you. And I look at my parents, the father, my biological father, he's kind of emotionally disconnected. We have a good relationship, but he's not as connected in his emotions or as vulnerable as I am. He's coming along, talking to me. But you have to say they worked with everything they had available to me, all the tools and all that stuff. And you're doing the same. Everything that you experienced and all the tools you had, you're doing the best you can with what you've got. So just try to figure out how to do more and learn more and be around the right people.
Awesome. Well, man, I'm so glad that you got over your fear of trusting vets and are now helping them, and you found the joy of service and how it can reward you and all the people you touch. I tell you, we need an army of Louises. Thanks for joining us today, and thanks to Louis Stockley Jr. He's living proof that the war inside ends the moment a man decides to stop hiding and start speaking truth. If something in this conversation woke something up for you, don't let it fade. Don't go back to, I'm good, if you're not. Check out Louis's work at Before 22, and if you're a man looking for community, connection, and a place to take the masks off without judgment, join me inside Authentic AF, my online men's community, We have men's groups, guided meditations, real conversation, and a space where you don't have to pretend. Visit realmenfeel.org/group and step inside. And until next time, be good to yourself.